My name is Carlos Diego Arenas Pacheco. I'm a third-year student in the Medieval Institute at the University of Notre Dame. When I was looking for opportunities to study my Ph.D., I was looking for places that were multidisciplinary in nature. The Medieval Institute was and still is a place that is very open for research like mine that seeks to make the Middle Ages conversant with early modern history, and also make Europe, or the history of Europe, conversant with the Americas. And since my research has to do with the intellectual history of indigenous peoples in Mexico and how they adapted and transformed medieval European culture, the other topic of my dissertation will be the adoption and transformation of European visual and textual culture in 16th century Mexico by indigenous intellectuals. And I focus on studying both texts and paintings and other kinds of artwork done by indigenous artists and writers. So there's this very interesting painting in a town called Tecamachalco in the state of Puebla in central Mexico. There's this painting done in a ribbed vault below the choir at the local colonial church. And in this painting you can see images from the apocalypse painted on traditional and native amate paper, which is a kind of paper done and still used by indigenous peoples in Mexico. But the images come actually from engravings that the artists saw in Bibles and other devotional works imported by the Franciscan friars. And the engravings themselves come from where the originals were done by Hans Holbein and other of the great engravers in Europe. So that transmission and that adoption of European imagery and its transformation into something native, not only because it was painted on traditional paper, but also because some of the iconography was altered to make sense to a native audience, points to how the native artists were very conscious of what they were doing. They were using art as a way to portray their own identities and to negotiate their own intellectual landscape. On religious life, modern-day Mexico is some kind of mixture between Orthodox Catholicism, let's call it, and some accommodations that were done with native traditions. It's rather an accommodation of medieval Catholicism and indigenous traditions. For instance, we have very big traditions of carnivals all throughout Mexico. And again, this they can only be explained not by seeing modern-day Mexican Catholicism as a modern mixture, but rather a medieval mixture. And there are a lot of medieval traditions still being practiced in Mexico that give Mexican culture its own colorful character by which it's known.